I want to discuss today some components of building your dream team. And I actually even enjoy how John Maxwell says this. He says, give your team, or give your dream a team. What a great title. I read one of his blogs, and that's how he defined it. And so today I'm going to draw some information from John Maxwell, from Go To Nations Training, from Dean Radke with the Ministry Institute. All of these people these organizations have effectively created teams over the years. And of course, I'll be putting my own thoughts and ideas into this. But I would like you to consider today's teaching as an overview. I literally could teach on building your team for several hours. And that will be our goal in the future. And I want you to think about this. We're considering doing detailed functional training where I would spend a couple of hours on a subject, or maybe even 4 hours on a subject, and do a half-day seminar so that we can fully teach the essence or the aspect of that training to everyone who is a part of our realm of influence. So we welcome you here today, and we're grateful for your presence. Many of you listening today represent teams. You participate in a team, obviously, or you are building your own dream team. So let's get started. Give your team a dream. How important that is. I like this statement. If you're dreaming big, then the size of your vision will surpass your present abilities, or we could say your present capabilities. Not only that, but your dream will even dwarf your potential abilities. No matter how much you grow and develop, you'll never be able to accomplish your dream alone. One is simply not enough to accomplish a dream. We find team ministry foundations in the Bible. The definition of a team can be the following: 2 or more people moving along the same road toward a common goal. 2 or more people. The scripture tells us that 2 together is strong, but a threefold cord is not easily broken. And so having the strength of varying opinions, having the strength even of different ideas, and having the strength of different giftings in your team will fill out the dream and the vision that is in your heart. Bible foundations for our dream we find in Luke chapter 10, when Jesus commissioned 70, and then he sent them out 2 by 2. Paul and Barnabas were sent as a team in Acts chapter 13. Acts chapter 15, we discovered that Paul and Silas team up. In Acts chapter 16, Paul and Silas are joined by Timothy. And in Acts chapter 16, Paul and Silas are a team ministry in prison. I tell you, you don't want to be standing alone in those moments when you find yourself in prison. You want to be standing with someone who believes in you, believes in your dream, believes in your future, believes in the vision, believes and sees things from a different perspective. I don't know how Silas saw things in the prison. I only hear reflected how Paul saw things in the prison, and how the believers were praying for them as they were in prison. Other biblical foundations for our dream team: the Gospels. The best team player we discover is Jesus. The moment Jesus went into public ministry, he started building a ministry team. Why? Well, first of all, to accomplish the will of the Father for his life, and 2, so that the work could continue after he was gone. We build teams so that we may establish a legacy that is far beyond the reality of what you and I can do alone. So teams should be built both horizontally and they should be built vertically. I believe that the horizontal building of the team will expand your leadership capabilities into other areas. But I also believe that the vertical development and building of your team will bring you the depth required to handle the very many roles that are associated with your team. And I will get to more of that a little bit later as I continue my overview of team planning or team building. Here we go. Let's read on a little bit more in some of my notes. Every dream needs a team in order to come true. Hey, why do we have 100 tents across Eurasia today? Why have we been able to conduct well over 1,000, probably more now, like 1,500 outreaches all across Eurasia? Why have we been able to do that? Because of people who have picked up a vision and come into agreement of something they want to see happen. Because of people that even when they face difficulties and they understand that at times there are disagreements, they are willing to put aside their disagreements and to seek and find that moment of agreement around a vision and devise a plan to see it accomplished. There are two main questions that we need to consider when we are looking at our team and who we want to include on that team and how we want to convince them to join. But before I get to that, let me talk to you a little bit more about how team ministry, what components or the core essentials there are of team ministry. What do I mean by that, about core essentials? And why am I talking about this? Because before Kevin and I right now, we see the necessity to expand into several areas. Of course, TentNation is working. Why are we spending so much time training? Why are we building the iMove platform? For those of you who will watch us in the future, why do we have the iMove training platform? Because we needed to build a team. And in order to build a team that can carry out the TentNation vision, they must be able to run with us in training and teaching and basic skills that will allow us to run quickly together and see the harvest reached. So because of that, we have developed a team around the iMove training platform. Who's on that team? Well, a COBE is on that team. A COBE is the administrative leader of that team, where he is coordinating the pieces and make sure that we have timely meetings. He's adding his insight and his ideas to the development of the programs as he is connected to the overall vision of iMove and its ability to support TentNation, its ability to support mass evangelism, its ability to support the establishment of the local church, and its ability to train believers in an understanding of evangelism, and its ability to train evangelistic team leaders. You may say, well, Leslie, you brought forth this vision of TentNation, but I don't see all of the tents up and running everywhere. Hey, I'm not concerned about that, because I understand in every vision we are building a team and a plan that runs together. And we always, like marathon runners, we have the long distance purpose in our hearts and in our focus. In Jesus' name, amen. So in order to build this team, we must recognize, or we should recognize, that there are three essential elements to every team in order to cause it to function well. What are those three essential components? Number one, vision. Every team must have a vision. What is the vision that we're going after? Simply said, vision gives the ministry purpose. I understand that my mission statement in general is empowering dreams in the global advance of good news. My vision statement. My mission statement, or the mission statement of this ministry, is as we are empowering dreams in the global advance of good news. Our mission statement says that we will reach 1 billion souls. How will we do that? We will develop and reach those 1 billion souls through the tools of mass outreach, mass media, and mass discipleship. And I can give you definition of each one of those points. So anyone who joins up in this team, whether you're doing tent ministry or you're being trained right now, you have the opportunity to be a part of a global team that is empowering dreams in the ability to share the good news. And in doing that, we will reach out through mass outreach tools, tents, mass evangelism, street evangelism, the ability to go beyond what we can do just one-on-one. And 2, we're going to do it through mass media. That's why we're building the online school platform. On that team that I mentioned to you earlier with ACOB, we have a man by the name of Steve Olson who comes to us from Colorado, who comes to us by way of many years' experience. As ACOB said, he was there in the very beginning when they began talking about technology and how we were going to use it to improve business efficiency and how we were going to reach people through this technological platform ability that was being initiated in the 70s. And here Steve Olson, still a young man, after all of these years, has joined our team. And he is the mind that understands the necessity to integrate various technologies. And as a former division manager of Cisco Systems and of Oracle, he is bringing great complementary talents to this team. At the same time, we have a core of workers led by Mirgan Dima, who is over there in Albania. He is our branding, creative website development team leader. And Mirgan brings to this team tremendous experience working with multinational corporations across Europe. And he is working with a cohort of programists, you might say in Russian, or programmers in Albania who were working out the details of this site. Now, I have a chair on that team because I carry, and Kevin, we carry vision to that team. But also on that team, we have those that we would call curriculum developers. And those curriculum developers are Johnny, and they are Jim Bergdorf. And they sit in that chair of curriculum development. And also, we have a resource manager on that team who is helping us look into all of the materials. I call Galalevshina our historian, our librarian. So that librarian has a place at that table as we develop this online training platform. And actually, we have a Russian team that will flow out of this table, and we have a French team that must flow out of this table in order to complete this online training platform. So, vision is an essential part of building your team. Vision gives the ministry purpose. A second essential part of this team ministry is called relationships. We would say in English, go figure. Or we might say, duh. Or really? Do we need relationships? Yes. Relationships give the ministry the ability to accomplish the vision. Relationships represent people. Relationships must be built in strength. They must be built in certain characteristics that I don't even have time to cover with you today. But in other trainings, we will look at things such as, what are the attributes of good team members? 11 ways that we can establish proper relationships with people while we develop our teams. And discovering the various team roles and how they function for productivity within your team. I do not have time to cover those with you today, but those are essential elements. When I say attributes of a good team member, I'll give you one, and very important: mutual respect. In every team, we must have mutual respect for every team member. Why? Mutual respect says simply this: I know that Christ lives in you. And therefore, because Christ lives in you, I believe in the greater one who lives within the inside of you. And because he lives on the inside of you, first, I am responsible before God to respect you as a brother or a sister in the Lord. And that's where mutual respect begins. Recognizing, understanding that I choose and must respect you because you are a fellow brother or a fellow sister in Christ Jesus. Not because I have just a hierarchical definition of I'm the leader, you're the follower, and you must do what I say. No. Mutual respect must underlay all of those components before we are able to have a cohesive, a peaceful, a productive, and an expansive team that is at work. So relationships give the ministry the ability to accomplish the vision. Attributes of good team members. We've covered one, mutual respect. How about the 11 aspects? I'll just give you one. 11 proper attitudes that are required in order for you to function within a team. And these are very important. Give me just a moment and I'll find it in my notes because I want to just give you an overview. I don't want to give you the entire training. I don't have sufficient time to do that. So I will here. 11 ways of proper relationships with people. First, and probably the most important would be this. Before you say something, ask yourself 3 questions. Are you with me? You'll want to write this down. Before you say something, ask yourself 3 questions. And I would say this regarding the United States of America and in our political arena today. We are suffering, sorely suffering in the area of these 3 questions. Question number 1, ask yourself this: is what I want to say true? You see, very often, the things that we want to say are simply a reaction to something that someone else has already said. So we need to learn to control ourselves. We need to learn to be good listeners so that as we listen, then we can temper our responses with truth rather than simply with accusation and response. You know, I appreciate what one of our team members in Russia said when I was there just a few weeks ago. She says, I don't think this person hears me or listens to me. And I said, I would correct you in this way. I would say, I don't believe that team member sees what you see and therefore cannot hear what you are saying. You see, in teams, it's very important to define that vision so that people are able to see what you are saying. And as we heard many years ago, me teach, and we've read from John Maxwell, you can have a 10 dream and a 2 team, and that is simply a recipe for chaos. You can have a 10 dream, and you may have some 7 leaders on that team and some 1 leaders on that team, and you still can have a recipe for chaos. Because if those leaders, and I'm talking about on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, if those leaders who possess the capacity of a 7 leader, their skills are well developed, if that leader does not have the compensity or the ability to listen and to clearly articulate, that team leader who is a 1 will be frustrated and will not have the ability to walk in agreement. And in fact, perhaps that 1 leader should be in a different facet of the ministry at that season. Very important. We have a lovely woman who works here with us in the United States, honorable, devoted, dedicated, given her life to this ministry over the last 20 plus years. A servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. And she has a servant's heart. But because of where she tackles a problem, if she's always tackling that problem at that level, and I'm over here thinking at a different level, I can become frustrated and I can become quickly angered by that because I need to move at a different level. However, that person's abilities and perspectives are absolutely valuable for this ministry. But it's a matter of her functioning within that team in a way that brings peace to her life and brings peace to my life. So, number one, before you say something in establishing those relationships, ask yourself this question: is it true? And remember this, sometimes the frustration around moving forward in your team is not that people are not listening to you. The reality is they can't hear you because they haven't seen yet what you have seen. We have an obvious example of this from the other day in our office when certain of our team members were really ready to jump into the development and the finalization of the details. And to be honest with you, I had not had the opportunity to evaluate or surmise the big picture enough to say the action plan in conjunction with our team should possess these 3 next steps. But in order for me to understand those next steps, I, from my chair, require the time with my team to review that big picture. Why? So that we can all see the same thing, and then together as a team, we can make the proper decisions based on the different roles that we bring to those teams. So back to 11 ways of the proper relationships with people. Ask yourself, 1, is it true? 2, ask yourself, is it benevolent? In other words, is what I'm going to say or the attitude in which I'm going to say it, is it good-natured? Is it positive? Is it going to affect the person who hears? Is it going to impact them in a positive way? Now, folks, I have worked within the Russian culture for many years, and honestly, I've worked within the Latin American culture and various Asian cultures for many years, and the American culture. So I am somewhat diverse in traversing the varied personalities and perspectives that are brought to a team. But I must tell you that when I participated in and actually spoke at the 4-year election meeting of the Russian Federation of Christian Evangelical Churches, when I addressed that organization and participated in the meetings, I remember hearing its president say this: these meetings are fantastic because we have fellowship and then we argue. We have fellowship and we share visions and we discuss and we argue. And it is through our arguing that we arrive at our decisions and we make and become better people. When I heard that, I thought, oh, Lord Jesus, this is what I have been experiencing for the last 25 years. Because in American culture, sometimes we don't want to argue. We want to avoid the argument. And someone said to me, in the United States, we say, 2 brains are better than 1 because with 2 brains, in peace, we can decide an issue. Someone told me in Russia the statement regarding arguing, that it's in arguing that we can find the thread of truth or the exact point that must be decided. And one of you will remember the phrase better than I do. But even in arguing, it is important that we maintain proper respect of our other team members, and that it's more of a discussion than it is an argumentative spirit where we are so polarized in our opinions that we cannot find a point of yielding so that we may arrive at a point of agreement for the future work that is ahead of us. So ask yourself, is it true? Ask yourself, is it benevolent? And ask yourself, is what I want to say necessary? There are many times that we say in America, held my tongue. In other words, I wanted to say something and I didn't say it. And the older that I've gotten, the better I have gotten at holding my tongue. Because the scripture is clear for each one of us that life and death, according to the book of Proverbs chapter 4, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And you have the ability to use the power of that tongue to bring destruction or to bring positive empowerment to those that you are working with within your team. In order to walk in mutual respect, we must understand that argumentative behavior cannot be motivated by an aggressive attitude of polarization and a desire to always win. You see, the team wins when each one of us win. And in the United States, we've always approached it from the win-win mentality. However, I dare say that in this season in the United States, we have moved off of the win-win to the I win, you lose. Because in my world, there's no room for any different opinion. And I'm speaking about the politics in the United States of America in this season. So, 11 ways of proper relationships with people. That's just point number 1 that I've spent close to 10 minutes discussing with you today. And there are 11 more, which I look forward to delivering to you in the future. So let's continue on. We are talking about developing or giving your dream a team. I really like that statement. And as John Maxwell says, okay, I'm going to give you credit one time, and after that, now it's mine. I'm going to use it. And he gives us permission to do that. So, developing giving your dream a team. As I said earlier, and I'm not quite finished because here, 3 essential elements. Okay, 3 essential elements of team ministry. We covered vision. We've spoken to relationship. And under relationship, I was looking at teams, effective or attributes of good team members, mutual respect, and 11 ways of proper relationships within a team. But point number 3 I want to bring up regarding well-functioning or 3 essential elements of well-functioning teams: vision, relationships, and number 3, structure. Structure gives the ministry a way to accomplish the vision. Within any structure, you will have those that operate in more of a military function. What do I mean by that? You have a goal. You have something that you must accomplish. You have a service at 10 a.m. And in order to get that service up and running, you do not have time to have a discussion about how everything is going to happen at 9:45. At 9:45, you are already strategically implementing the plan that must be accomplished, and there is no time for discussion, and everyone understands their function and their role within the team, and they simply respond and act and do what must be done. That is not the time where we're team building, team discussing, team planning, team creating. That is the time when we are very effectively using something that we would refer to a very hierarchical implementation of the plan. Now, within that hierarchical implementation of our plan and our structure, we must still maintain mutual respect. We must still maintain attitudes of proper team members. We must still respect each other. We must still honor each other. We must still build each other. We must still lift each other. And we still must mind the way in which we speak, although we should give ourselves a greater breadth of error in our attitudes because we have a deadline that we must accomplish at that moment. And therefore, I, as a team member, must respond in grace when I'm given a command or when it's barked out to me. For example, when we were doing mass evangelism with Dr. T.L. Osborne, there were moments that he would simply, in front of 60, 70,000, 100,000, 200,000 people, bark out an order. What do I mean by bark? Like a dog, woof. It just comes out, woof. And at that moment, it's not my time to go, oh, why did he say it that way? Oh, my goodness, I'm so offended by what just happened. No, I'm in the heat of the battle. And therefore, the general has barked out a command, and it is my responsibility to respond and implement an action step to overcome that scenario that's before us at that moment. In fact, I can use this so well. I remember when we were working in the Congo, and we ended up with 17,000 leaders in our meeting, and we had anticipated only having approximately 10,000. And so, therefore, we did not have enough complete sets of the books to give 5 books to every person who was present. So, therefore, we had to creatively break up those books into smaller packets so that everyone would receive some books. Well, you would have thought this was the worst idea that could ever happen. And our national team was not in agreement with that idea. They said, Sister Leslie, actually Mama Leslie, if you do this, we are going to have a riot. Yet I knew in my heart of hearts I didn't have much choice. I remember praying and asking the Lord when I went home that night. I said, these leaders say we are going to have nothing but riots. This is going to be complicated. I went home to my hotel room that night and I said to the Lord, and what do you say about this? And I heard these words. It was as if an audible voice spoke in the room. And it said, these words said, be it unto you according to your faith. And right at that moment, I said, we will divide up the books, pass them out to all 17,000 people, and we will have no riots in Jesus' name. And that's what I believe, Father. Why do I share this? Because the next day, I spent several hours standing in front of these 17,000 people, conducting, leading, and barking out commands to every one of these groups that sat over here or sat over there, or who were distributing the books, or who were lifting or opening the books. I spent several hours in this mentality of a general because at that moment we were carrying out the plan. Now, that's not the way in which I would meet with those individuals to discuss the plan. Because when we sit down to the table of leadership, we approach the problem, we make our decisions, we develop our plan, we identify our structure, we lay it out. So therefore, as we go out before the mass crowds, we are ready to implement in a very hierarchical methodology our ability to accomplish through structure the plan and the dream that we have in our hearts. Yet on the other side, when I develop teams, we have something that we call the leadership table, or the leadership table of 5. And this is something that I learned clearly from Dean Radke. And I want to cover this as it pertains still to understanding a third component of structure. Now, I could cover with you many different methodologies of carrying out and implementing a structure to support the ministry and the vision that you have. I also understand that what I'm going to share with you about keys of effective team management, that I could teach multiple hours on this as well. But I want to introduce this topic to you because there's a seed here that you can glean and you can take away with you. And many of you are very mature already in ministry and in team development. And I believe the thoughts I share with you today will help you. Remember this, keys of effective team, can we say team management, team development, would be developing that leadership table of 5. On that leadership, just imagine I have a table here, and I know our videographer there will be able to put me to a larger table so that you can see it. Here I have a table around me that I can seat 5 people around this table, and we've used this table before for team planning. At this leadership table of 5, each table must have a leader. because a leader is bringing the vision for discussion to that table. Now, many times that leader is represented in the entity of Kevin and I, and we easily and freely pass that leadership of that table back and forth, depending on what aspect we may be talking about or what we may be focusing on, because we embody the vision and the dream together as a husband and a wife and as a couple in this ministry. Each table has a leader. Each individual at that table has a role, and each team functions within a larger vision of reaching a purpose, a goal, and a destination. Ministry cannot grow without developing these leadership teams. Each person at the table, when you bring 5 to that table, each person at that table is responsible to develop their own leadership, be the leader of their own table. A Kolb has a responsibility, not for Leslie to find his team players, not for Leslie to recruit those team members that will sit on his table, but a Kolb has a responsibility to recruit 5 team members to his table and train them and lead them and encourage them to develop their skills so that we can grow this international ministry in the areas of tent ministry, of mass evangelism, and other outreach perspectives, which he is highly qualified to do. Not only is he qualified to do that at his leadership table, he does many other things. So an individual may function on more than just one team table, as I do. But here's the question. When you sit down to your leadership team table of 5 individuals, and each person is at that table, do you have servants or do you have leaders at your table? You see, servants are, everyone must have a servant's attitude. And when they asked Jesus, I believe it was Mark chapter 10, you can correct me if I have the wrong reference, but at that time, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they wanted to know from Jesus, who will sit at your right hand and who will sit at your left hand when you establish your kingdom? In other words, who are going to be the big dogs with you and who's going to be in charge? Jesus' response was, well, it's not for you to determine who those individuals will be. And 2, anyone who wants to function in this place must be a servant of all. And in the English or in the Greek language, it's actually the word doulos, which is the word for slave. In other words, anyone who wants to be great in the kingdom must be the slave of all, must be a slave to the vision, must be a slave to the dynamics, must be a slave to these principles, must be a slave to mutual respect, must be a slave willing to lay down their lives to that vision. And that's where leadership begins. Leadership begins by saying yes. Leadership begins by choosing to live with a yes and expectation, and to live in integrity and honesty before the Lord, before your family, in your own eyes, and before the teams that you are a part of. So I would ask you, if you have a team full of servants, are you spending enough time developing their leadership abilities so that they can develop their own leadership teams? For example, as I look to the future in the ministry center that we're starting here in Daytona, and the ministry church that will flow out of that ministry center in order to support our team and to cause it to function essentially, I understand that we must have a pastoral team. I understand that we must have a media team. I understand that we must have an outreach team. I understand we must have a discipleship team. I understand we must have an ushers team. I understand that we must have a facilities, an administrative team that can flow out of the pastoral team as an executive ministry team. But in that, we must have the finance team. We must have the facilities management team. We must have the natural, practical business side, not just the ministry side. So I'm looking forward, and we are working to develop that ministry team for the United States right now. And we will develop that leadership team where people will come and take a seat at the table and where we can grow together. So, in that table of 5, we have to ask ourselves certain questions. How are we going to operate within that team? Are we going to function? And this is something else I will cover later. Are we going to function in an anti-team role? What's an anti-team role? An anti-team role simply means I'm not interested. I'm not going to participate in the discussions. I'm too busy. I don't have time. Yes, that can be a reality, that you feel like you don't have enough time. But in building things, you must dedicate ample time, adequate time, to the development of the vision so that it can be laid out clearly for others to follow. And that's where actually a great deal of your time will begin as you are working on that. Now, I want to cover a couple of things that, so I'm going to cover roles within a team, not today. And again, these roles within a team would go back to attitudes and relationships. Roles, you have anti-team roles, you have encourager team roles, you have maintenance team roles. There are very many different perspectives, but the anti-team is your most dangerous. The anti-team role says this: I will talk to you about something in private, but I refuse to bring it to the leadership table for discussion. You see, at our table, if you are at that table, you do not have the right to be silent. You must share your opinion, because in my history and my experience in missions, those who refuse to share are the ones that sometimes are holding the very best ideas, or they are holding the greatest offenses, or they have decided they will not participate in that team, and they are Xing themselves out simply by their refusal to participate in that team. So we're going to talk more about these different roles within the team and how we can function better as team players. And honestly, when we just met with many of the Russian evangelists there over in the Moscow Mission Center, I was so pleased to hear that they have a greater interest in functioning more closely and operating more closely in a corporate, I wouldn't say a corporate, but in a strategic vision in reaching Eurasia and the nations of the earth. So I say to you, gentlemen and ladies, hats off to you for your desire to see our ability as a team expand and grow so that we may reach millions in this season in our lives. I trust that you're getting something out of this today, because as I've been speaking to you, now I mentioned to you keys of effective team management, or through the leadership table of 5. How important that is for us, and that is part of our structure. We have the leadership table of 5. We also have the moment when we implement the strategy and must operate quickly and get things done, and I call that our hardwired, hierarchical, get the plan done right now. And all of you who do team ministry, you understand when Yevgeny stands up, like he did here in Daytona Beach, and he said, okay, the big pole goes up. And I thank Apostle Yevgeny, Dr. Apostle Yevgeny, for that word. Doctor, I don't think you have your doctorate yet, but Apostle Yevgeny, I thank you for that involvement. Why? Because we recognize the importance that when you bark out that command and that order at that moment, people must respond, or lives can be injured. People can be hurt. And Yevgeny, we thank you for your willingness to serve. You represent to Kevin and I the heart of a servant, from the day when you held the speaker standing out doing street ministry in Dzerzhinsk, to the day that you stood side by side with us as we launched this ministry, Tent Nation, here in the United States. To many others, I could add not only my compliments, but my sincere appreciation for the role that you have played in this ministry. But due to time, I'll not spend all day doing that. I'll have to do that in another venue. And I guess one more. I think of Kirill. You know, Kirill's role sometimes goes significantly unnoticed. And his ability to stabilize that Moscow mission through that tent factory, and his ability to generate and produce those tents that have gone all across Eurasia. Kirill, that was a humongous effort. You didn't do it alone. You did it with a team. And you didn't do it alone. You did it with your wife. She stood there beside you, believing in you, standing with you, declaring with you, praying over you and for you, as we all have done. And I'm very grateful to you, Kirill, your willingness to serve in that way. You have laid the foundation for a great future when all 100 tents go up at the same time into the harvest. You have taken that mantle. You have taken that responsibility, that you would be the Apostle Paul in modern day times, leading a movement by providing implements and tools so that they could raise up tents simultaneously across all of Eurasia. Let's do it, folks. Let's plan it. Let's run it a vision that all 100 plus, there's more than 100, plus tents would be located and put up on the same day, at the same moment in time, and we can celebrate the harvest of Eurasia. So, let me continue on by saying this. Every vision, every dream must have, I would say, 4 components that I consider essentially important. One, in this idea of vision, relationship, and structure, we must have those individuals who dream, who create, who expect a vision and deliver a vision that we can walk in. I don't have time to talk about that in detail today. 2, every team must have those who have the ability to research, to plan, to budget, to determine how it's going to be carried out. 3, every vision or every dream team must have those who implement the vision and actually put it into action. And 4, every dream team must have those who maintain that dream and they keep it functioning. In other words, they are willing to revise, to evaluate, to continue to stand in a position that allows that overall dream to function. Without these, we cannot succeed. And honestly, today, those of you who are listening to me, without these, Tent Nation will not succeed. And without these, the iMove School will not succeed. Because it's not just about creating the dream, the platform, and then beginning to implement that platform. But it's also, or planning for that platform. Now we're implementing the pieces, but it's going to be maintaining that platform once it's in place. One of my board members said to me yesterday, he said, Leslie, and to Kevin as well, he said, we must keep in mind that the Chinese have determined that they are going to penetrate as many web opportunities as they can in the United States of America. And then he said we must educate every aspect of our team to understand never to open a phishing email. Don't know if you know what that is, but that's an email that would contain a worm, or it would contain a virus or ransomware. We must educate our team not to answer odd or strange emails. We must build the security systems around this online training platform so that it cannot be penetrated. And Steve Olson, our technologist, said that although the Amazon 3 cloud services had been accessed and a bank had been penetrated, that Steve has taken ample time to clearly build around what we have put on that Amazon Cloud 3 resources, a very good security net to protect us for the future. So, you see, all of these aspects are so important in everything that we do. We have to have not only the vision, the dream, the plan, the cost, the implementation, but we must have the maintenance of those pieces in order for the dream to become a reality. So, let me go back to now, and I think this is where I will close today, because we've covered now vision, relationship, and structure. You know, I have so many examples that just keep penetrating through my heart that I want to share with you today. I'm thinking about how important it is to understand our role and our function within that team and yield to other team members so that we can accomplish the dream. In maintaining things, I was thinking just about Mongolia and how there's such a great interest in Mongolia, and people are coming from many different places, from our teams, from other nations, to be invested into the revival that's happening in Mongolia. Yet, there's only one large tent that our partners had the real joy of placing into Mongolia, with Johannes selecting the person who would receive that tent and doing a very good job of it, by the way. Yet at the same time, if everybody just wants to come in and use that tent all the time, any way they want to do it, where's the insurance in case something goes wrong with that tent? Who's maintaining that tent? Where's the deposit that says, hey, if I tear this tent, I've got $2,000, I'm going to fix this tent? It's not just about using the tent. It's about maintaining that tent and maintaining its ability to service future opportunities of outreach. And so any leader would necessarily ask, how much are you willing to put up for the use of this tent? Not from the standpoint of a flat-out rental agreement, but as Yevgeny Gailev established for us many years ago when he was still alive, contracts with times, terms, details that would let us know why this tent went to this area and what the responsibilities were of that individual to do that. And even as I speak now, Akob, it is time for us to resurrect those contracts regarding our teams. So we appreciate you all very much. Let's go back to where I began in the beginning and where I'm going to close today. I believe this will bless you. I know it blessed me this morning as I spent time developing it and working in it. Give your dream a team. If you're dreaming big, then the size of your vision will surpass your present abilities. Not only that, but your dream, as I said earlier, will even dwarf your potential abilities. So no matter how much you grow and develop, you won't ever be able to accomplish the dream alone. And one, the island of one, is too small a number to achieve greatness. Every dream needs a team in order to come true. So, there are two main questions that I'll close with today to give you some nuggets to chew on or to meditate on. And I'll also develop these concepts in more detail in the future. But two main questions that we can ask. One, who to include on the team? And two, how to convince them to join the team. Anybody have need of new team members? Boy, I certainly do. And I'm quite sure that you have need of new team members wherever you are today. Because if you're moving forward, if you have a vision and a dream, if your ship is going in some direction, somebody's got to maintain that engine. Somebody's got to clean those rooms. Somebody's got to engage in all of the wonderful activities that can take place on that team and blessing the people who are a part of that vision and who are being reached through that vision and who are on that ship to go to a particular destination. I want you to remember this. Very, very important. Because the longer I'm in ministry, the more I understand this to be true. I am not afraid of failure. Life is especially hard on dreams. And when challenges arise, we can be tempted to delay the dream indefinitely or to abandon it altogether. That's why every dream team must have inspirers. Boy, that's hard to say in English. Every dream team must have those who inspire, those who encourage, those who lift, those who believe, those who expect the best out of the vision and out of every team member. Every dream team must have those individuals. But if you have only those individuals, you could have problems. But what do people who inspire have an essential ability to do? These people keep hope alive by providing continual encouragement. Hope is the picture of the place we want to go. Hope is the picture of the dream that we want to accomplish. Hope is what our faith attaches to. Hope is where we understand that the grace of God causes us to be able to do all that He's called us to do. Hope is the picture. Hope is not just a wish, not just a desire. It's much bigger than that. Hope is the picture that we can run with. So, we must have those who inspire us to stay alive by providing stay alive in our dream by providing continual encouragement. Maybe you need somebody to inspire you to stay alive. I don't know. I do understand that suicidal rates in ministry are at astronomical highs. So if you deal with those thoughts, you bring them to the light and you find help now in Jesus' name. So inspirers, they believe in the dream even when you start to doubt it. And I'll tell you this, like I shared with those women in Briansk, Russia, we had such a great meeting together. There are times that you just got to go find yourself a field, and at the top of your lungs, all alone, you got to shout that dream out loud. Why? So that you can drown out every negative voice that is trying to convince you that it is not possible. If you find yourself in a place of wanting to abandon the dream or a place of delay that has got you in the moment of frustration, open your mouth. Put the word of God in it. Decree and declare those things which you desire to see, and you will see change, not only in your world, but in the world around you. There's a fine line between a dream and a fantasy. And it can be easy to cross that fine line without knowing it. Every dreamer needs honest critics to keep from wandering into make-believe. You know, I believe, Carell, this could be one of your greatest areas of functioning, that you, as a team member, could be an honest critic if and when and as you currently do function in a God-giving team role of mutual respect, honesty, and participation. Carell, you carry this gift about you. Olga, you carry a dream, a vision of the inspirer. And you do work in reality as well. I know that. But there are some of us who will always view that glass from that half-empty perspective, but we don't get stuck there. And some of us who will always view that glass from that half-full perspective, and we don't get stuck there. We must have honest critics to keep us from wandering into make-believe. And I really appreciate this about Dr. Jim Bergdorf and our team. You know, he and I sometimes, we kind of hit things pretty solid straight on, because he has an ability to really analyze and think through things in very realistic steps that can be implemented, and time frames and budgets, a leader in that respect. And so he is always tossing back to me those thoughts in very clear and strong opinions. He's an honest critic on our team who is valuable to our team. But we must also remember these constructive critics are not skeptics, and they are not cynics. They believe in the dream just as much as you do, just as much as the inspirer does. However, they're attuned to reality, and they know that a dreamer who avoids facts and evidence will inevitably lose credibility. Finally, I want you to remember this, that every dreamer must surround herself or himself with people who possess complementary skills. In honesty, I've been talking about this all throughout this training today. But we must remember this. Our strengths are narrow, and we cannot possibly hope to excel at every activity required for the dream to materialize. Mother Teresa said this when she expressed this idea with eloquent simplicity. I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together, we can do great things. That's pretty well said, isn't it? It was Maxwell that quoted her by saying that she was speaking with elegant simplicity. Now, as we close today, if you are in need of answering question number 2, how to convince them to join my team, consider these things. How should I share my dream? And I actually go into this in my Live Your Dream series. And I encourage you today to download that, meditate on it, reflect on it, and listen to it again. One, emotionally. Have you ever gone through a checkout lane, at the grocery store or the supermarket and had a cashier kind of just robotically say, if you sign up today, you will get our reward and our bonus plan. And if you sign up for our reward and our bonus plan, and then you're going to get this special opportunity to receive discounts in the future. Is that how they speak? I mean, if they speak to you that way, you're going to shut them down automatically. But I remember Olga and I were purchasing a sweater in a store in Moscow. I'm telling you, that girl, she was all over why we needed to sign up for the rewards program, because even though I was buying the sweater and I didn't live there, Olga could sign up for the rewards program, and then she would get these incentives and these discounts and these opportunities, of course, to spend more money. But at the same time, develop a coalition of purchasers who are going to cause that company to prosper and therefore expand its opportunity to have more stores, reach more people, and bless more with the dream that's in their heart of providing quality clothing at a quality good price. So emotionally, remember, the first person that should be excited about the dream is you. If you're not passionate about it, then no one else will be passionate about the dream either. I sometimes deal with people when I'm looking at them, they're on the dream team, and I'm thinking, you look like a deer that's in headlights, we say in America. The deer just ran out into the headlights and went, ah! We don't need deer in the headlights. We need participators. Those who have an opinion that they will offer in good emotion with mutual respect for each other, as I shared earlier. Remember, sharing the dream starts with passion, but it also requires a personal connection with others. People buy into the leader before they buy into the dream. How do you get team members to buy into you as a leader? By serving them, by adding value to their lives. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Don't X people out of your life. Don't isolate yourself. In the area of isolation, there is desolation. In the arena of isolation, there is depression. In the arena of isolation, there is fear and failure. No. You need to put yourself in a place to value others and then allow yourself to be valued by others. Number 2, logically, communicate. How do you share your dream team logically? And I talk about this again in my Live Your Dream plan. Communicate the tangible benefits of buying into the dream. Most people are tuned into, hey, what's in it for me? In other words, let's make a deal. If I do this, what am I going to get out of this? Let's Make a Deal is a very famous program in the United States. But what's in it for me? What will I get out of this? People rarely do anything until they see the personal, measurable benefits of taking action. For me, the personal, measurable benefit of investing into your lives is knowing how many people can receive Jesus and knowing that you will grow. I like what I heard a very famous preacher say, and he's famous in today's time. And I like it because I've always thought this way. It's not how big can your ministry be. It's how big can the people be that you invest into. Because as you build people, your dream expands. Logically, they need to know how much you care. So communicate the tangible benefits of buying into the dream. They rarely do anything until they see personal, measurable benefits. And to put it another way, most people don't change until they know enough that they are able to do, care enough that they want to, or hurt enough that they have to do something. In addition to spelling out the practical benefits of participating in the dream, have a game plan that you can articulate clearly and succinctly. People need to know the path they're going to travel before they sign up for the journey. Habakkuk 2:2 is clear. Write the vision so that he who reads it may run with it. And then I want to close and give you these thoughts to ponder. So I hope you have a pencil, a pen, or someplace to write these ideas down. Remember this. Thoughts to ponder. Who are the key members of your dream team? What role does each person play? What vacancies do you have on the team? And who could you recruit to fill those vacancies? That's my takeaway for you today. I want you to look at the team that's around you and ask yourself those questions. Why? So that together we can reach 1 billion souls by empowering dreams and the global advance of good news. And how will we do that? We will do that through mass outreach, mass media, and mass discipleship. I'll close with this word of prayer. Father, I thank you for those who are listening to me today. Lord, I ask you, where there's struggle, where there's pain, where they are hurting, I ask you, Father, to remove offense, to remove pain. I ask you, Holy Spirit, to breathe on their lives, to breathe on their hearts, to cause them to be renewed today. Open the eyes of their understanding so that they can see that you have for each one of them who are listening to us today a dream team, and that they, Father God, would have the ability to give their dream to a team. So, my time has ended with you today, but I do want to hear from you. I do want to know, would you like me to conduct perhaps a half-day seminar where I would do nothing but teach on all of the components of developing your team that I've mentioned to you as just a few here today? So, I love you, appreciate this time that I get to spend with you each month. And we're bringing to the table some additional meetings that we will be conducting. We have interest in learning mass evangelism. That will be a pre-qualified round table leadership discussion that will require, by those that we do not know, an application to participate in it. For some of you who have requested that we've been walking with for 20 years, you already pre-qualify for that round table. And we also will be, after the first of the year, initiating our weekly broadcast, where we'll be covering themes simply like, for us, our personal development, like healing and finances and many different areas of our lives, where we are speaking to both believers and unbelievers. So we love you, we appreciate you, and now it is my great honor to turn the responsibility of this meeting back over to Akob, who is going to give you some announcements. Hey, I want to remind you, you can go online and sow a seed. I so appreciate what I heard Olga say. You know, Olga was telling all the evangelists in Moscow, hey, evangelists, it's time that we sow financial seeds back into those who helped us get where we are today, rather than just expecting that they give us money. Now, many of you do that already. Many of you have done it over the years. But I'll tell you this, that when I honor my spiritual parents in the Lord with my resources, I do see a significant blessing that takes place. So always be generous in everything that you do, in every attitude that you have. And I believe Akob will briefly share with you, as we make this transition, where you can go to make your online contributions, and be reminded of this, that if you are over there in Russia, you can do it via PayPal. If you're in Bulgaria, via PayPal. I want you to know that the Bulgarians were able to pay a significant portion of the cost of that conference that was done there in Sofia, Bulgaria. And we are very grateful for that. The Church of Ufa invested heavily in our ability to conduct a meeting there in Bashkortostan. And we are very, very grateful for their participation. And the team in Moscow was very generous in supplying meals and food and hospitality for Kevin and I while we were there in Moscow, and doing many more things. Honestly, I had wanted the living room painted in that house, and when I arrived, they had taken their time and their money to repaint the living room of our mission house. To you, that may not be important, but to me, that speaks of honor, that speaks of love, that speaks of respect, and that speaks of a reality that they know how important clean order and beauty is to me. And as we learn from our mentor, T.L. Osborne, create for yourself beautiful spaces that will create creativity in your life. And if you're a part of a team, you must always remember that is a part of your function. If you cannot find yourself functioning in that way within a team, then you must consider, is this my team? We love you, not serving me, but serving those who are on the team is what I mean. We love you. Look forward to being with you.